Hello everyone, it is I, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Mint, and today I'm gonna be opening up this freaking cardboard box that I got in the mail yesterday, and contained within are less than a dozen PSA graded Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. In the meantime, I'll be talking about money in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'll do a little bit personal sharing with you about how my own profiteering looks like in Yu-Gi-Oh! And what I think about it. So why don't we get started with this bad boy? As you can notice, I can cut out my own address there because some people noted in the previous videos that I had my address there and they were like, you don't want to get robbed, buddy. And I was like, you know what? You make a good point. I do not want to get robbed, so I'll omit that. So I did that. Anyways, let's go ahead and open this. I already made some incisions, so it's nice and easy. Maybe it's not that easy. These are always a little tough to open, actually. Oh, there we go. All right. So, yeah, it's going to be brief. There's only a small number of these. We'll work backwards and we'll see what we have here. It's a small number, but they are big hitters. So before I even go ahead and show the first card, some people, I've noticed in some of the comment section, some people say things like, or even on Instagram, I see comments of people saying things like, oh, he's a flipper. Not referring to me specifically, but to other people, although I have had some refer to me specifically. Flipper, in the sense meaning that somebody buys something for low and then flips it for a higher price for the purpose of profiteering or in making a profit, in other words. And they use that word as if it's a dirty word, like, oh, he seems like a flipper, or that person's a flipper, or he comes off as a flipper. So I just kind of wanted to clear the air. Do I do this for the money? It's kind of the question that's maybe on some people's minds. And some people want a clear answer, perhaps. And I don't mind answering that question. And the answer is partially yes. I'm not going to be ashamed to say that I have made quite a bit of profit with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I don't see anything wrong with that. Some people feel that it somehow takes away from the card game or degrades it in some way, if that's the only purpose. First of all, it's not the only purpose that I have, but I don't see anything wrong whatsoever with taking a hobby that you love and making money from it if you can. So one thing about me is that I'm not, or I prefer not to be, attached to anything that I possess or own. So as I noted on one of my Instagram posts earlier this week, I'm not really irrevocably attached to any of my cards. And in fact, they're always kind of circulating. I'll have something for maybe like a month at most. And if I hold on to something longer than that, there's probably a really good reason for it. But I don't hold on to things that long. They circulate. I'm always trading. I'm always selling. I'm always buying. And for me, it's not really so much about the dollar amount that I profit as much as it is the feeling of victory when I turn, a card, and I have to use dollar amount only to kind of paint a picture of what the trade success looks like, right? Because if you have a card that's worth about $300 and you're able to make some moves and ultimately get it to a card that's worth like $2,000, your collection grew. Whether or not you're going to turn it into a cash profit is up to you, but the collection grew, and that's obviously a success and a victory. That was through your own ingenuity. So it is through the application of my own talent and my own ingenuity. And just even things like connections and people skills. A lot of things bear in on this. A lot of factors come into play when it comes to, are you able to grow your collection without having to, for example, funnel in external funds in order to do so? Are you able to organically and internally grow it? And for me, the answer has been consistently yes to that, and I'm very proud of it. And I have made profit, yes, of course. And I'll go ahead and actually I'll go through some of these cards, and I'll tell you about some of the profit I've made and how that has worked out for me. So let's go ahead and start back from the beginning, and maybe I'll do some more commentary as I go ahead throughout this submission. But it's already been 4 minutes, so I don't want to take too long. The first card is a Trihorn Dragon. This is a first print PSA 10 Trihorn Dragon. I'm using a headlamp here so you can see it. Wow, man, look at this thing. Gorgeous card. First print, first edition. Now, again, I have to emphasize that there is a difference between first print and first edition. LOB comes in first edition and unlimited, but it also comes in first print and second print. This one is first print, and all that really means is that the card has like this ripple-like wavy hollow foil on it, as opposed to the flat hollow foil. And maybe I'll show you the difference to that. Actually, I will show you the difference real soon. But anyways, this is the first print, first edition PSA 10 version of Trihorn Dragon. And I made a post on Instagram saying this card is the first of the first of the first of the first. And the reason I say that is because it's the first card released in the first set, which is Legend Blue Eyes White Dragon. And the reason I say it's the first card is because it's LB000. So out of that set of 126 or 27, I believe, cards, it's technically the first one in the order of that set. So the first card of the first set in first edition and also in first print. So it's the first of the first of the first of the first. I kind of like that saying. I know it's really geeky and nerdy, but I don't know. I always enjoyed it. So let's go ahead and move on and see what we've got here. And this is a first. Maybe I'll cover that for. Actually, no need to cover it. This has been sold, so nobody please ask me to buy it. But anyways, this is the first print, first edition version of Flame Swordsman, super rare. And I really like how this card looks. I gotta say, even more than the Flame Swordsman. This is arguably the best super rare from Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon. And to find it in the first print, first edition version of PSA 10, I've only ever seen one other one in such a version. And the reason I like it a lot is because if you look really closely, the flames, there's a flame-like background to an accentuation to the sword in the background of the card. And when you combine that with the first print holofoil and the ripple-like effect, it makes a really cool-looking, fiery tone or theme to the card, which otherwise wouldn't really exist had it been the second print. And I don't have a second print available to show the difference, unfortunately. But it is one of the most striking first print cards from Legend Blue Eyes, in my opinion. And it's quite something. It's quite something. All right, next we have the first print, first edition version, or right arm of the Forbidden One. Not much to say here, except that you can kind of see the ripples even more on this card. It's easier to see because there's more space for the hollow foil here. You can see how just ripply it is. Like you could ride or surf on those freaking things. Beautiful. All right, moving on. It's really hard to complete that set as a first print, first edition PSA 10, really is. But let's move on and see what we have here. And this is a PSA 10 first print, first edition Gaia the Fierce Knight. So again, you can see those ripples, and it's Gaia. What else to say except it's freaking Gaia. Look at him. Look at him commanding that knight with a K. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Let's move on. Oh yeah, maybe I should comment about some of these. Not yet. We have Dark Magician Girl, PSA 10, first edition. No mention of first print, obviously, because that only applies to Legend Blue Eyes White Dragon. But, yeah, this bad girl has kind of seen a steady rise in price in the in this year, basically. Last year, I remember she was selling for just under 1,000, but she's recently sold on eBay for 1,900. And I'm not saying that's what she's worth. A lot of people get mad when I say a card is worth a certain amount. They're like, no, it's not worth that much. I'm like, all right, relax. You can disagree if it's not worth that much. No big deal. Some people get offended, which I find really, really hard to understand. If they get offended if I value a card at a certain price, especially if it's, the people get offended if it's a high price. Like if I said this card is worth $3,000, and if I made that public, I bet you I would have people commenting and messaging me saying all sorts of things, mean things. I don't know what, I didn't even get why, because like, what does it matter? Except only insofar as they could think maybe I'm trying to manipulate the market. I can understand that. I can relate with that if that's actually what I'm trying to do. So actually, yeah, I guess that does make sense. But everybody has a responsibility to do their own research, and has the availability of the same information everybody else has for the most part. eBay sold histories are available to everybody to view, so people can make their own decisions. But what I typically say is that the auctions are kind of the key thing to determining value. If a card is auctioned on the eBay marketplace, and the auction is at least a week, then that's probably the most telling in terms of the actual market demand and price of the card. Followed by that is just eBay buy it now, OBO, or best offers accepted, and then circumstantially through Instagram sales and other things like that, as well as other factors taken into consideration, of course, because the market may undervalue or overvalue a card depending on the hype or lack thereof. So sometimes you can actually just undercut the market, and you can get a card when it's undervalued because this thing used to be like under 1,000, I think, at the beginning of this year. So technically, you could say that was undervalued at the time because it jumped real quick. You know, it adjusted really quick, and it might be overvalued now, so it might adjust downwards real quick. Either way, that applies for all the cards, not just Dark Magician Girl. So there's volatility in pretty much everything. But damn, that looks gorgeous. All right, now that card I bought for I paid, I believe, 400 or 300, somewhere between $300 and $400 for it. But it's certainly worth at least 1,500 now. And you know, up to 2,000 maybe. The cheapest on eBay is like 2,100, but I'm not sure if that's what it's worth, even though one sold for 1,900. Either way, the profit looks to be about $1,000 at least for me on this card. So you know, I just got lucky. I just got the 10. So I feel good about it. You know, I've already gone through the emotions because I saw the results of this PSA submission before I opened the box. That's usually how I do it. So it was a really good feeling, I have to tell you. You know, seeing these cards get 10s on that submission result when I go to psacard.com, it's a great feeling. And that's really mostly what I do it for. It's just the feeling of expansion. You know, it's just a feeling of kind of like abundance. That's I think what we're all really looking for. It comes in many different shapes and forms. One of them, of course, is just through doing something that you really love. I love Yu-Gi-Oh! I have a Dark Magician Girl statue in my room. I've watched Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! When I came to America, it was kind of the thing that I did. And it was my childhood, to tell you the truth. I made my friends with Yu-Gi-Oh! So it really has a place in my heart, and I mean it. Dark Paladin, first edition, Gem 10. This is the error artwork. So it's the less rare variant. The more rare variant, as some of you may know, is the corrected artwork. And the only way you get that was to send this guy to Upper Deck or to Konami, and they'll send back the corrected artwork, which is the one with... He looks like he's curved or bent over with his staff / sword, whatever you want to call it. Still cool looking, actually kind of... It's hard to tell which artwork looks better. Dark Paladin just looks gorgeous either way. But this is his Facebook profile picture probably, so it's all good. That card, I'm not sure. I think I paid like 100 for. Actually, no, I paid like 75 for it, so it's like 500. Now again, some of you, I can already feel some of you getting upset and irritated by the fact that I'm even mentioning dollars in the video, and I get that. That's part of the... I actually don't get it too much because I don't see what difference it makes. Again, it's not degrading the card game. I don't love Dark Paladin any less just because I'm able to attach a dollar amount to him, or to recognize and be aware of the fact that he's increased in price 5-fold as a result of me grading him into a 10. You know, I appreciate the card, and I'm sure some of you have noted that the way I just spoke about him. And believe me, I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at these cards, just kind of going through the light like that. That's really how much I admire them. I'm not attached to them. I got to point that out. Some people are attached to their cards. I'm not going to, pass judgment on that. To each their own. I wouldn't say I'm attached in the sense that I'd kind of be willing to trade or sell any of this stuff for the most part, or anything I have pretty much. That's just my own spiritual outlook, which is I don't like to be attached to material objects. I am to some things, and sometimes it's under the radar. I'm not aware of it, sure, because nobody has perfect self-awareness. But for the most part, if that's my goal is not to be attached. So I try to keep that in mind. But I do have a preference, obviously. Even though I'm not attached, I do have a preference and an admiration and an appreciation for these cards. So next we have just the standard issue PSA 9 first print first edition Gaia the Fierce Knight. And the reason I got a 9 was, you can see it's off center top to bottom, which means this bottom edge is being naughty. In other words, it's about freaking 1/3 of the width or girth of the top border. And we don't like to see that. It's very naughty. Bad, Gaia, bad. But in all seriousness, there's no way this is going to be upgraded to a 10, even if I tried. It's just way off center. PSA does, it is kind of forgiving off on centering, assuming the rest of the card is perfect. The rest of this card is perfect, virtually perfect. But you cannot forgive that kind of centering. It's just way way too bad. And I wouldn't even send it to BGS. BGS would be even more harsh on it. So I'm gonna leave it as is. So we'll see what happens. We have a PSA 8 first edition Yugioh Forbidden One. Now, I had noted in one of my previous videos that I only send cards to PSA if I think they'll get a 10. In other words, I think they're candidates for 10. That is no longer the case. I expected this card to get a 9. But the reason I sent it in is because I actually like to create some contrast between my 10s and other cards. So cards that I want to get 10s, I'll actually put them right next to or adjacent to cards that I don't think will get 10s. So that it's just a psychological sort of trick that I use that may or may not work at all. It may be a total waste of time and money. But what I think is, in my view, if the grader passes by this card and it says, oh no, that's not a 10 worthy, but then the next card is kind of between a 9 and 10, I figure that he's more likely to give the next card the higher grade of 10, just because of the psychological contrast between the prior 9 and the next 10 candidate, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, it's subliminal, you know. It's nobody thinks about it. You know, I don't expect the grader to look at this card and be like, okay, I gave this one a 9. This one looks a little better. I'm gonna give it a 10. No, I'm not expecting that overt kind of conceptualization of it, but it's subconscious. It is a psychological undercurrent, I think, that sometimes is unavoidable, even for those of us that are quite self-aware. So I employ any tools at my disposal, and one of them is that strategy. It may or may not work, and I will be making a video about my own PSA grading strategy and some little tweaks and twerks that I do here and there in order to maximize my chances of a 10. And I know that might sound like, well, you know, they got to be objective, and what makes you think that you can influence them with your witchcraft and trickery? I don't think that I'm not sure, but to me, it's just the amount of input, the amount of investment I got to put into the trickery in order to make it work. If it's small, I'll do it, you know, because the investment is so small, and in some cases it is very small, like the arrangement of the cards. I'll go into that in a different video, but just wanted to point that out. And the reason I point that out is because this got an 8, you know, and I really wasn't expecting a 10, but an 8 was a little surprising. Either way, this is the second print first edition version of Yugioh the Forbidden One. Really cool card. And let's go ahead and move into this guy. I wonder which one he is. I have no idea, by the way. I'm not just like playing games here. I have no idea what card this is, but there's only 2 cards left, and one of them is a really cool one, and the other one, I don't even know what it is, because I forgot what was in the submission. So let's see what this one is. Yep, this is the cool one. Blue Eyes White Dragon, LOB 001, first edition, second print from Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon. So this is first edition, second print, and you can see that, right? You don't see those ripples anymore. You just see a flat, very reflective, bright hollow foil. And it is really reflective. I mean, look at that. Boom. Really shiny. So this is the first Blue Eyes ever released in English, and right now it is seeing a very high price increase in its price. Man, I'm just being like redundant here, but yeah, if you look at like the data on this card, it really skyrocketed. I remember last year I sold one for 800, and now it's approaching 3 times that much. Not there yet, but it's approaching that. I think, you know, nobody get mad, relax. If you disagree, you know, whatever. I know I'm biased, by the way, because I own the card, but I can guarantee you I will not be holding on long to this card just because somebody's going to come across and be like, I want it. You know, I'm already in the works for doing a trade for it, so more than likely it's probably gonna be gone soon. And I've had it before, you know, and man, it's such a gorgeous card, but again, I try not to be attached to anything, because that's not good. But yeah, I really hope you guys are admiring these cards with me, because when you see something like this, that just spells nostalgia for a lot of us. I know that for sure. Let's go ahead and look at the last one. Maybe we'll revisit some of these. By the way, let me just mention the fact that, you know, in terms of profiteering, this one takes the cake, because I spent, I believe it was like $350 on this card raw, and it got the 10, so I'm looking at a large profit, you know, like $1,700 on one card. And again, you know, take that as you will. I don't think it degrades the card game. I don't think it is a disservice to Blue Eyes White Dragon. Um, it might say something about me, or it may not. You can decide for yourself. But like I said, I love the cards. I'm not attached to them, and it should be that way. That's the right way that it should be, in my view. So yeah, I mean, I really can't stop looking at this. It really is quite something. Yeah, it really is. It's a beautiful card. And I'll just look at the last one here. I really have no idea what it could be. I forgot what was in the submission. Oh yeah, PSA 8, Blue Eyes White Dragon, DDS 001. How could I forget? So this is PSA 8. I was expecting an 8. So I do have a 10 as well. So I have another one. So I have 3 of these. But I've actually just make one last point here. There's been some contention, not much, mostly from me, about which of these is the quote-unquote holy grail of Yu-Gi-Oh collecting. So the word holy grail, you can interpret it, or phrase, you can interpret it however you like. But to me, it means kind of the card or collectible that people are willing to expend the most money and energy and effort to obtain. So for example, everybody technically wants a Cyberstein from Shonen Jump, the first prize card ever. But it doesn't make it the holy grail because it's a $6,000 card and it's kind of niche. And even though everybody technically wants it, they wouldn't be willing to go out of their way to obtain it. They wouldn't want to put down all that money and effort, energy to obtain it. So which card are people willing to most obtain or most invest money, time, and energy and effort into obtaining? Which one fits the bill of being the holy grail? There are some other qualifications that I would imagine would be with the holy grail designation. For one, when it comes to the competition of these two, and I do think it's either one or the other. I don't see what other competitor could kind of compete with the space, since the Blue Eyes White Dragon is really essentially the most iconic card in the trading card game. I can't think of one that could be more iconic. There's other ones like Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, Red Eyes Black Dragon. You can name Karibo. You can name a lot of others, but really Blue Eyes White Dragon is probably the one that people are gonna really remember as being most nostalgic and most memorable and most iconic in the card game and in the show. So there's 2 options here, right? One of them is the original artwork. And that right there is probably the most important piece of information when it comes to deciding which one is the Holy Grail. By the way, this is totally arbitrary. Like, it doesn't matter which one is the Holy Grail. It doesn't make one, like, it's just for fun, for speculation, arbitrary speculation, really. So it's totally for fun, not trying to make a point here or anything. Except just for the purpose of having fun with it. The original artwork takes the cake for me. Because that's the one we all love. Come on, let's be honest. I mean, this guy is cool, and it's the first card from the first set. It's very rare, and it's hard to get as a 10. But this guy's the original artwork. I mean, what else is there? I mean, the artwork is the artwork. That's like when you look at a card, the first thing you see is the artwork. You don't read the text up here. You don't look at the back. I mean, the artwork is what you see. And this is just way cooler. It holds way more value for us, this artwork, emotionally, nostalgically, and perhaps in other ways as well. Plus the prismatic hollow foil on it. We've never seen it with this artwork anywhere. And it's among the first 3 Blue Eyes as released, along with this Blue Eyes. So there are strong competitors for the Holy Grail, but this guy takes the cake, in my opinion. I've already made this point before, but I always think it's a fun point to make. If anybody wants to contend it, I welcome them, invite them to do it. So I think that will conclude the video. Just want to kind of touch base here, do some little housekeeping, and say that, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! And I will continue to expand my collection where I can, if I can do it without having to funnel more money into it. If I can just kind of work with what I have. And that's something I enjoy doing. Like I said, I love the feeling of success when I'm able to, buy the card raw and get it back as a 10. When I see that 10 on the PSA submission website, it feels great. So it is partially for the money, I guess you could say, in terms of that expansion. It manifests or instantiates itself in a form of money. because that's the only meaningful way we can really talk about the value is in terms of numbers and dollar amounts. But that's not the whole picture. I don't want to paint that as the whole picture. And there are, I guess, some people out there, but I don't really know of these people who just are all about the money, you know? All about the money, 100%. I don't know of a single person like that. I've never met a single person like that because I don't see how you would get into flipping Yu-Gi cards in the first place unless you had some kind of special bond with Yu-Gi-Oh to begin with. It wouldn't make sense to me. Like, imagine somebody doesn't even like care all too much for Yu-Gi-Oh, comes into it and it's like, okay, you know what? I can see this is selling for quite a bit. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna infiltrate, and I'm gonna flip everybody. I don't see how that happens. It's usually the people who love the game who decide, wow, hey, you know, I just made like a $300 profit off that card. Maybe I can do that again. That felt great, you know, and I can expand my collection. I'm not even gonna sell, but let's see if we can do that again. And they do it again and do it more the next time and more the next time, and the correct collection grows and multiplies. You know, that more power to them. You go, girl. Definitely. So that is that. That's my defense of not really a defense. I mean, I haven't had much offense on it, but it's a 26-minute video. Wow, I really do talk a lot. Well, anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the commentary, and I hope you appreciate the cards as much as I do. I know some of you appreciate them more than I do. But that is it, you guys. I will be making more videos. One of them will be how to maximize the chances of winning a PSA 10. Maybe I'll make another video about how you can actually find cards to grade in order to profiteer, if that's what you're looking to do. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, and peace.